Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Eduardo de Souza Lau, President of the Federation of Portuguese Canadian Business and Professionals. On behalf of the board, I would like to thank our panel of dynamic guest speakers and our moderator for joining us today. We also thank our corporate sponsors and today's event sponsors for their unwavering support. This is the last of this specific speaker series, so we wish to thank the curators and their team for organizing these events. The speaker series will continue to be an integral part of the visual online platform addressing various topics. I would also like to acknowledge the founders, past presidents, and past boards for their dedication and commitment to the Federation. And lastly, to the essential workers who continue to selflessly serve others, we say thank you. Let us begin. Today's series is moderated by José Cabral, the student advisor at Ryerson University. José, my friend, I pass it over to you.
Thank you, Eduardo. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you all so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to be here, and I personally want to thank Eduardo and the board of the Federation for this opportunity for including post-secondary education in your speaker series. As a former board member, I have seen the work that we do to help students with the scholarships and how much we support their studies. So I'm pleased to say that we are discussing this today. And without further ado, I will start introducing our panel members. So first of all, I would like to introduce Ashley Esteves. Ashley is pursuing medical education at the University of Ottawa. She is actually going to I believe, the final year. She's pursuing her residency, and she's aiming to complete in 2021. Hello, Ashley. How are you?
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good. All right. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Next, I would like to introduce Matthew Canvas. Matthew is a transportation engineer. He holds a master in engineering in transportation, engineering, and planning from the University of Toronto. And Matthew is a past scholarship recipient with the Federation. Hello, Matthew.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Next, I would like to introduce Sarah Pierre. Sarah is a PhD candidate with the University of British Columbia in BC, Okanagan, and she is also one of the directors of the Federation and also a proud past Federation scholarship recipient. Hello, Sarah. How are you?
Hi.
Hello. And my apologies, I forgot to mention that Ashley is also a past recipient of the scholarship, so I apologize, Ashley. All right, so last but certainly not least, I would like to introduce Dr. Paula Ferreira Gouveia. Dr. Gouveia is the Vice President Academic at Cambridge College. Dr. Gouveia has held various roles in higher education, including the Dean and Chair of Humber College and Seneca College. And Dr. Gouveia holds a PhD from the University of Toronto as well in French language and literature. Bonjour. Comment ça va?
Bonjour. Bonjour, ça va très bien. Merci, et vous?
All right, très bien, merci. Hola a todos, and let's get started. So, just to set the stage, I would like to say that our goal for today is to hopefully inspire those watching us, all the viewers. Please feel free to join us for Facebook live streaming and submit your questions. We'll be trying to address your questions towards the end. So there's no questions, all questions are valid. So please submit your questions, and we look forward to be addressing those towards the end. I would like to start perhaps kicking off things here with one common question for a lot of you guys in our panel. So how has COVID impacted you, whether your studies or your job or your personal, whatever you want to address? And maybe, Ashley, can we start with you?
Yep, definitely. So I can speak to this first. COVID-19 has pretty much put a wrench in my clerkship, which is the part of my education where I'm in the hospital, actively in clinic, and trying to get that hands-on experience. So that point of mid-March, when it was declared a pandemic, my clerkship was canceled or postponed for the next 3 months. And it's actually just resumed this week. So I'm happy to finally be back. But in the meantime, it was challenging going from being so busy every day and just trying to take in as much as possible to kind of being at home with really no plan. So it's impacted me in the way that I feel that I've missed out a bit on that hands-on education in the last 3 months, but have been able to catch up on other things, make use of my online resources, continue medical education online, So shift towards that, which we can speak on later. And also make a point to catch up on some research, take up extracurricular activities, keep up with friends that I haven't spoken to in a long time. So there have been both positives and negatives from my perspective.
Oops, it sounds like you have been busy. That's interesting. All right, thank you, Ashley. Matthew, if I can move on to you, I understand you have been working from home. So maybe you can speak about that and how COVID has affected you since the lockdown and now with the reopening of the economy. So up to you, Matthew.
Yeah, similar to Ashley, I've been working from home since late March when things all went down. Um, Obviously, the hours have been lower. You know, you're not working your 5 day week anymore. You might work in 5 day week. You're working 3 to 4 days. But for me, the thing that's impacted me the most about COVID probably has to be the mentorship that I get in person from like my colleagues. I'm an engineer in training, so I'm not quite a professional engineer. That's my next goal, but I'm still learning a lot, and I'm still trying to get as much information as I can from my colleagues and my supervisors and everything. So for me, having to not have that face-to-face interaction, I can't just walk into someone's office and be like, hey, let's go over this report. Let's look at these drawings. Let's look at this. It's a bit different, right? I've had to use different mechanisms to kind of cope with that. I've been using Zoom. I've been using phone calls and just not being afraid to use that, because it's very easy to just send an email and then wait for a response. But it's a lot more interactive, and it's better if you're having a discussion, especially someone that's still learning like myself. I've just found it better to kind of still get that mentorship, even though I don't get it in that person to person in the office, just finding new ways for it.
That's interesting because, as we know, I mean, most of our communication is our body language, right? So even if you have the face and the screen time and connect with your supervisor, you still have that challenge because, like you said, you cannot just walk to their desk. Perhaps you have to schedule a call, or because you don't know if they're busy if you just ring or something, right? That's
You can't
very
just,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can totally see that. Dr. Gouveia, perhaps you can give us some insights on how COVID has impacted you.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you very much, number one, for the invitation to speak this evening with my colleagues on this panel. You think back to March 13th when the emergency measures were brought in provincially. What it resulted for us in the post-secondary world was a complete and utter shutdown of our campuses and a pivot from what is traditionally a very face-to-face activity, and that is a learning, to something that's remote or online. And the word online is a difficult word for a lot of students, because when they think of online learning, a lot of times they're actually thinking that they're engaging in asynchronous learning. So they're logging onto a system, they don't have a lot of connection with colleagues or peers or even with a faculty member. But the systems took days, and we took a week to pivot and have our courses back up and running. And so you've exited well over 5,000 full-time students, 1,000 faculty and staff, and you've transitioned to supporting all of that learning, all of the supports that make learning possible, all of the activities that make post-secondary an enjoyable experience, to the virtual world. So unlike Matthew, the days are fuller. The days just bleed one into the next. There is no end to the meetings. There is no end to trying to support new and innovative ideas. There's no end to trying to support students, because we recognize that it's a very challenging time for everyone to be able to build those connections and find meaning at a time when the way in which they've defined what they thought their experience was going to be has been completely dismantled. So it's both exciting because you're allowed to be able to be very creative and innovative in a very short period of time. So I think the panelists can all think of examples of things that they're doing now that potentially would have taken months or years to see come to fruition in their own professional lives or in their own academic lives. And it happened almost overnight. So I think we need to be proud of ourselves as a society for being able to pivot so quickly. But I also think that we need to focus very much on the human element. And this is why making these connections is so important. So for me, from a professional perspective, having to support teams and having to support faculty and students and not being able to walk through a hallway and see the body language and ask someone how they're doing, stop in at the coffee kiosk and pick up a coffee and talk to people. That's very difficult to not have that, and to have to rely solely on screens and telephones and emails. But I think when we make the extra effort it makes it a little bit more worthwhile, because I think people can see the genuineness of our interest in connecting.
That's great. It's taking the effort. It's challenging, absolutely it is. But if we take the effort to account for those, you have to add a little bit to the communication. And it can go a long way. We might not be perfect, but you can get the message across and you can paraphrase, or you can use. It's interesting to listen to you speaking about, 1 week and the transition. Words cannot describe what we went through. It's a massive undertaking, right? It's just like, and I'm proud to be here as well. So I totally agree with you. Yeah, thanks for that. Sarah, can we move on to you and hear a little bit from you, like how your grad studies have been impacted? How was the transition, and just overall, like how was the impact for you?
Yeah, so for me, grad studies, I'm currently writing my dissertation. I'm in the final stages. So that didn't really get impacted as much, other than the fact that my supervisors were now really busy all of a sudden in March, and had other things to attend to that were more pressing. One thing that did on a personal note was job searches. So now I'm in this transition phase where I'm finishing up my dissertation and I'm trying to move on to finding a job. And I spent 2 weeks working on a really great application to a university in Ontario. And because of COVID, that position is no longer available. So I can look at it two ways. I can say, I spent 2 weeks and I wasted my time. Or I can say I spent 2 weeks and now I have this amazing teaching dossier and this awesome application that's just ready for a next opportunity. And so I'm taking the second route and not wallowing in the fact that I wasted 2 weeks of my time. Another positive for me was the fact that my university, I go to UBC, they've actually provided so many opportunities for students for employment. So I was actually given two amazing instructional design positions, helping professors move their courses online in the fall. And I wouldn't have had those positions if this didn't happen. And so I'm very, very grateful for those opportunities to help professors move their stuff online in the fall. The experience that I'm getting, learning how to build syllabi and coordinate that online, have supportive documentation and all the fun stuff, videos, and really collaborative ways that we're trying to get teaching online and learning online. So that's another positive for me. Um, and yeah, in terms of my grad writing, nothing really changed. The issue for me, the biggest issue was the fact that I have a toddler, and all of a sudden his daycare just stopped. And so learning how to navigate trying to continue my studies and everything that I had to do with a child, rotating this chair around and constantly calling me with his cute little face, made it very, very difficult. So I have some things that we'll talk about later that helps me kind of focus and not feel guilty about both doing my work and being a good parent, a good mom.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations on the job. And I love that you're focused on the positive. That's amazing. That's how it should be. So, Matthew, perhaps I can come back to you with my second question for the panel, and maybe we can start with you. You mentioned working from home and the challenging connecting with your supervisor. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about how you're adapting to that, and how perhaps your life and work balance, how it has been. I wonder, like, can you share some thoughts?
Well, definitely, working from home is completely different than the office. It's really easy to get distracted. It's really easy to go to your kitchen every 5 minutes and grab a snack. There's a lot of things that can get in your way, but I think for me, the best thing to do is just try to get into a routine. I start work every day at 8 o'clock, so I don't wake up at 7:55, brush my teeth, and start, right? I like to wake up 7 o'clock. I eat a nice big breakfast. I take my time, and I give that, I give my brain some time to transition from just waking up to what it would usually be on a regular day to starting work. So I think just setting your routine and having your hours set, take a lunch break, don't work through your lunch, don't work past hours, just try to keep things, segregate home and work, right? You have to have two separate things there, right? And yeah, that for me, that's kind of what's been helping me, is just sticking to routine and then having my desk where I do my work. And then every other part of my house, that's home time. That's, cooking in the kitchen. I don't work there. The living room's for watching TV when work is done. It's just keeping that mind healthy and separating work from home.
Interesting. So it's a short commute, but the fact that you're moving to a different room in your home, it feels like you're transitioning, right? So that's interesting. And I'm glad to hear that you're separating the time and have a schedule, like keeping the routine. That's super important.
Yeah.
And also having time for yourself, right? We need to balance in a way. It's not because we are home that we can answer email 5 in the morning or
No.
like 11 p.m. We have to separate things. So thanks for that. Ashley, maybe I can move to you. And you mentioned the residency, going to the hospital. So I can only imagine. I don't know if you're working with both patients but how are you adapting? How is your routine being with COVID?
Right. So I actually just resumed clerkship this week. So as of Monday, and I'm already noticing a lot of differences. I'm mostly calling patients over the phone. And, if somebody has a rash, you can only describe it in so many ways. And it's hard to get that full information that you would have had if you saw them in person, as well as that reassurance on what kind of decisions you want to make for them. So I find that while I'm in the stage where I do have to ask a lot of questions, I feel that I'm asking maybe double the questions because I just don't have that reassurance at this stage. I'm also noticing in a positive way, our healthcare system is moving towards telemedicine. And with that, I mean, you're still limited by the physical exam in certain maneuvers you might want to do and getting a closer look. But for the most part, you can feel reassured. You can get a sense of how that person is doing, looking at them in front of you. And that's been really helpful. I'm grateful that my university has actually implemented a brand new telemedicine course. So prior to heading back to clerkship, we had the chance to interview actors over our webcam and simulate a telemedicine consult in that way. And that's been helpful. You realize that, oh, maybe I'm not looking at the camera as much, or maybe I completely missed this part of the history or the exam because I was distracted, or just things that have changed are the way that you gain consent online and the way that you take notes as well. So I think that's mostly a positive direction medicine is moving towards. Patients appreciate it. And a lot of physicians like the telemedicine aspect as well. But I will say it does make medical education a little bit more challenging in that we'll have to supplement and just try to see as many patients in person as we can as COVID permits.
All right, thank you. It's nice to hear that it's changing the way that not just the program is being taught, I mean, with the inclusion of the new course, but also the way that we provide healthcare. That perhaps, yeah, there's a challenge that you have to overcome in being remote, but in a way, you are kind of including people who potentially in northern areas of the country, though they may not have access to healthcare, and perhaps like having that telemedicine, as you said, could be a way to serve them as well, right? So it's great. I'm glad that we all consider both sides, like the challenges, but also the positives. So that's great. Dr. Gouveia, maybe I can move on to you, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit in the transition and changing the week time frame, and how you're supporting your faculty members and like remotely. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit more in how you're adapting to the whole situation in terms of the workforce or your work itself.
I mean, if I have to think about it institutionally, we have the luxury of having a teaching and learning innovation hub at my institution, and they've been very supportive with helping faculty to engage in professional development and being there to support them with exploring new educational technology tools and leveraging those tools to continue to be able to teach. So we've used the phrase faculty-led digital learning to actually describe what we would like our students to understand. It's connecting with the experts who are going to facilitate learning, but going online to do it. So you're not learning on your own and you're not teaching yourself. That doesn't mean that we don't have fully online courses, but this is a way that we really want to have post-secondary education stand out. And so having a center where we are employing students, just as Sarah described her own experience this summer, where there are experts available, where they are running a variety of professional development workshops nonstop, both through Zoom and other web conferencing solutions, recorded that you can pick up at home when it suits you. That's helped significantly. because it's enabled then people to feel more comfortable, because not everybody is at the same place and stage in terms of their own comfort level with technology. And when you just move everybody overnight, you have to be able to recognize that some will move faster. Some are able to adapt much more quickly. Some are much further ahead than you ever expected anyone to be. And then there are others that require a little bit more care, kindness. And I love to echo what a researcher out of the US calls the pedagogy of kindness. Come at it from the perspective that people really want to do a good job and that students really want to do a good job. And we can both meet in the middle. And so institutionally, having those supports in place really, really help. But they're not limited to only courses. And I think, Jose, you would know from your own perspective of the work that you do at Ryerson. It's also about moving all of the supports available, from accessibility services to testing services to peer tutoring, and enabling all of those services to also be able to be provided remotely. So then leveraging the talent that you have and the organizations and departments that you have to also enable others to all of a sudden move what they're able to do into that virtual realm. Because it's not just about what happens when you're online or in front of a screen. It's all of the learning that you have to engage in when you're doing homework, when you're working with a group of students on a project, when you're getting ready for placement, when you're working through simulations and case studies, and when you need help at 3 a.m. and an institution isn't necessarily open for you. How do you get that help that you need? So all of those pivot points are phenomenal to see in action, and they don't just happen because one person makes it so. It happens because you have a coalition of the willing, and you have a huge team of individuals who are very much committed and engaged to doing that. So, I'm blessed to be able to work with those kinds of people each and every day. From a professional perspective, I loved hearing Matthew talk about setting those boundaries and being able to ensure that you have the space that is respected as a workspace. I also love to encourage people to think about their own health and wellness. And again, lots of different organizations and institutions have been focusing on health and wellness through web conferencing. So whether it's yoga at 11:30 on Mondays or a book club at 4:30 in the afternoons on Thursdays, training for the half marathon with a group of other individuals that you're continuing on with as you have your device and you're walking around your house because you are in isolation. There are so many different things that people have put together to enable them just to have those casual conversations over shared interests, common interests, where students are participating, where your staff and your faculty are connecting. I mean, when you see those things, you really, really do know how much people value each other.
I love that. It's interesting you mentioned the teamwork, and a thought came to mind that we are all in this together, right? So it's not just the faculty, not just the staff or the students. We all have to come together and collaborate on this. So having the compassion and the kindness to understand perhaps, yes, some students will not have the best bandwidth or internet connection, and they may not be on video. They have to do a phone call. To your point, I had to transition like in less than a few hours because on March 13th, on a Friday, we were told at noon at the lunchtime, go home and work from home. And I said, okay, can I take the laptop with me? And I said, yeah, you can take your laptop. And then I was on Google Hangouts like right away, connect with students. You can imagine the barrage of questions that we were getting because was the transition right on the fly. And we were on Hangouts, like I was on Google Hangout talking to students. So the transition through virtual services was pretty much like seamless because we were able to do that right away. But a lot of services, like we mentioned, the tutoring, yeah, it takes longer because we rely on students to provide the tutoring. So it takes a little bit longer. And I think I'm fortunate enough because I have lived from the three different perspectives. As a staff member, I'm also a part-time professor at George Brown. So I have to shift my course in less than a week to online. Am I also pursuing my master's at the U of T? So I have to move to online courses. You mentioned the asynchronous or synchronous. I had to adapt to that and write a 3-hour exam with a professor looking at me on the camera. So I can relate to my students and all of the students actually what you guys are going through. But I want to reiterate that it's a team effort. It's everyone coming together, not just the faculty or the staff or the students. We all have to be in this together and be kind with one another, right? Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So, Sarah, maybe you can talk about how you are adapting.
Yeah, so I echo what everyone has mentioned so far. I love that pedagogy of kindness. I love that we've at our university have said the prism of compassion, and that's where people are working from, a prism of compassion. So it's this idea that faculty and staff are really trying to help, and they're doing the best they can, and they're really trying to make online learning and blended learning, as they say, which is part of this synchronous, asynchronous. Basically, synchronous is what we're doing right now, like the professor, the expert, whomever is online live, and you get to watch and participate in that and comment and maybe get participation grades depending on what the professor decides. Um, and the prism of compassion is this idea that everyone is kind of working together, and we really want everyone to succeed. And I honestly, I've never seen this much um, work towards courses. Like it's really hard to move some courses, especially in the sciences, chemistry, biology, where students have to be in a lab. And the thinking and the planning that's behind this, getting the best out of these students to for their success and for them to adapt well to this blended learning is fantastic. For myself personally, I've adapted through really relying on my supports, and I'm very blessed that I have a positive support system at home to help me with all of the other things that come along. And then I echo Matthew, where having those boundaries. So my office is my office, and that's where I do work. And then when I leave my office, I'm no longer thinking about work, which is really hard sometimes, as you all know. um, so I have my designated study space. And then I have taken advantage of a lot of online workshops and opportunities for learning, just for my own interest and also for the jobs that I have. And then yeah, I've created support groups with peers. So we've started Zoom. Zoom now is like the new thing, but we used to do Skype or like Facebook, where I would get invite my colleagues to meet on Facebook or Skype, and we would just set up a day, like even once a month, and just like tell me about your day. How's your week? How's it going? And that has really been a very successful and supportive thing for myself, because the way that in my family, particularly, not my family can't help me or support me in terms of grad school. They don't understand what that's like. And so talking to colleagues and peers who actually have that perspective and are in it with me is really helpful to kind of feel like, okay, like we got this and we can do this together. Which is why I love speaking with Ashley and Matthew, because I feel like um, it's so lovely to speak to students who are also past recipients and are just doing such amazing things. So yeah, and then creating a schedule, like Matthew said, and Paula said, for your own mental health, like really keeping a schedule and knowing or trying your best to keep within a schedule has been very helpful for me. And that's how I've adapted. Even before COVID, but especially because of COVID, I've had to really set more strict boundaries for myself.
Okay, thank you for that. And I can only imagine how you're managing time and juggling all the, I mean, your toddler, we love, and all those things. So it can be challenging, absolutely, yes. And we are all here, right? We are surviving this. So I kind of hear a little bit about mental health and how we are adjusting. And one of the things, I mean, as Portuguese Canadians who are having a Portuguese heritage, we love convenience, right? The get together. Yes, I know the like over a meal, and we have that, and we haven't been able to have that for a long time. So that has an effect, like this, just the isolation itself. It affects our mental health, right? So I'm wondering if you could share some tips or suggestions. How are you coping with that? So with missing, I mean, now we are starting to slowly get back, and like groups of 10 or so, we are able to see other people in our families and friends. But how have you coped? How are you coping with that? Maybe, Ashley, how about we start with you? Can you share some tips, or how have you been coping with this?
Yes. So actually, what Sarah had just said, I feel that really speaks to mental health. So I'll just echo that quickly: keeping a schedule, keeping your home life and your work life separate, and being in touch with people who can understand other dimensions of your life that maybe family members don't exactly understand or can fulfill at that time. So for myself, if I'm going to get really specific, early on, I did set up Zoom meetings with my friends, and we played online games. So there's online versions of Pictionary, and you grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, whatever you're feeling that night, and you feel really connected with your friends when you can see their face. It's so much better than just chatting on the phone, in my opinion. Other ways that I've been able to maintain my mental health are just getting outside. So, like I had mentioned, I've actually been studying from home in the last 3 months. So, I've had the opportunity to get outside, explore parts of Ottawa that I hadn't seen before, just be more mindful when I'm taking a walk or when I'm cooking a meal and things like that. So, it's kind of actually grounded me and it's changed my perspective from where I was at in the middle of a busy clerkship. And other things you can do are just make sure that you're checking in on your family and friends. Remember to call your mom, call your family on FaceTime if you are not living with them. And remember now that the bubbles have opened up to 10, you can do that safely, enjoy time outside, enjoy time is sharing food with your bubble. And that's really opened up a lot of opportunities for a lot of us. But yeah, recognize when your mental health is not doing so great and try to be more mindful if you can. And getting outside is, I think, the best remedy.
Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, and remember, call your mom. Mom. Yeah. Right. Maybe, Matthew, can you share how you have been coping with or adjusting with like your mental health? And we spoke a little bit about the boundaries earlier. I
Yeah.
wonder if you have some suggestions for folks listening to us.
To be honest, I really resonate with what Ashley said. For me, it's obviously, you know, the boundaries, setting that, keeping healthy, you know, hours of what you're working. But for me, it's reaching out to friends and family, calling them. Like I said before, it's kind of similar with the emails at work. Sending texts over to your friends, you don't get that human interaction. And like you said, the body language is so important. It's just nice to have that, you know, that hear that voice and see those people. So I think for me at least, just contacting friends, setting up Zoom calls as well, and just, you know, taking that side of things, just having fun and taking advantage of some spare time we have. Also going on walks at lunch. That's what I've been doing recently. You know, like, of course I still have my, you know, 9 to 5, but at lunchtime I don't have to sit in my office, eat my lunch and check my emails. I can go outside, I can go for a walk, I can get some fresh air. And for me, between those two things, it's really helped me out. One other thing I actually touched on as well is reaching out to somebody that you haven't talked to in a while, right? You don't know, you haven't seen somebody in a while, you can't see them. Well, now you can, there's a bubble of 10, but if they're not in your bubble, it always doesn't hurt to send an email or send a text and say, hey, do you want to call? Do you want to meet up? If you haven't talked to this person in a while, you don't know if they're going, you know, through a tougher time or if they're not talking to many people. So it doesn't hurt to reach out to others as well.
That sounds great. Yeah, I mean, sometimes we don't. I have been calling or even receiving calls from people as well that I haven't spoken in like months or so. So it's always like a quick check-in. It doesn't take long, right? It's
No,
just, hey, how are you? How have you been? And just to see how people are. So
and
it
calling your
goes a long
mom,
way. I know.
can't
Call your
forget.
mom. Yes, especially if she's Portuguese. How about you, Dr. Gouveia? Maybe you can share with us some suggestions, like how are you working on your mental health and how are you coping with the situation?
Um, I am going to echo what others have said. It was great to hear Matthew talk about getting out and going for a walk, Ashley talking about exploring Ottawa. I think one of the things that really, really helps with mental health is a focus on physical health. And so having some type of an exercise routine and sticking to it, it doesn't have to be intense. Walking is one of the best things that you can do. And fitting that in every day is important. We had the luxury of this coming to us in March when we weren't being hindered by, you know, minus 20-degree weather and 30 centimeters of snow. But building that in as a regular piece has been super important. I mean, I had a little bit of training early on for COVID-19 from the isolation perspective because I work up in Sudbury, but my family lives in Toronto. So we have dinner every day at 7 o'clock together. We FaceTime, we cook together, we sit around the table and we are talking. We're playing Wheel of Fortune together. So hearing some of those things from the younger panelists is really wonderful. I don't feel so old. I actually feel a little hip. That's great. But it's about building that connection and then realizing that not everybody has the technology. My mother just finally got the internet. O internet, meu Deus, as coisas que se pode fazer. So, I mean, those are phenomenal things, but it's scary. So for her, being able to just, you know, pop in, don't touch her, but pop in and say hello and make sure she's okay because she's 80 years old. That's important for her. Being able to see people because the isolation for her was very, very different and she's in a different risk category. So being very aware of those who are around you as well and what they might be able to support need by way of supports, I think was super important because it put us all in the role of caregivers, but caregivers with a conscience, because we weren't out there to be first responders. We were out there to make sure that people had groceries and out there to make sure that people had a warm smile and were not feeling so by themselves. So hearing people talk, as you said, picking up the phone and calling someone whom you haven't spoken to in forever. I mean, it's wonderful. Several of my friends, we were scheduling quarantinis. I mean, who knew? Those were all fun, keeping it completely clean. But it's those fun little things that helped people to get through, helped me to get through, helped me continue to get through. You know, I'm so thankful that the bubble now is to 10. My husband is one of 11. We can only have one brother or sister over at a time, but we can have people over. And it's brilliant because as the wonderful weather is here, it really helps us. I also have to give a shout out to Northern Ontario here, because one of the beautiful things, I think, Sarah, you're smiling because you understand the beauty of being out in BC. There's so much to be had by not being in a very, very large city with all of the wide open spaces and being able to get out onto a trail in less than 15 minutes, being able to get on to a lake, being able to enjoy nature and all of its beauty. It reminds us that we do live in such a beautiful country, beautiful province, and that we have the luxury of being able to be supported by the nature that surrounds us. And it is one of the most healing things to be able to be out and enjoy the changing of the seasons and all of the wonderful animals that surround us in their natural habitat. So, you know, being out and hiking has been a significant thing for me as well when we are up in Sudbury together as a family. So thanks for all the wonderful ideas, folks. I am feeling a little bit underachieved, but it's great to see that there's some good things happening.
Oh, absolutely. We love those ideas, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, everyone has a different way of coping. That's why I wanted to get a little bit of sense from each of you. And for some of us, just a 5-minute walk outside and going to a park or is riding a bike, it doesn't matter what it is, so long as you find something that suits you, right? So, okay, so we have spoken a little bit about what has happened since March. Let's start looking a little bit towards the future now. And like we have the fall coming up. And for us, for all of us working in post-secondary, we are like diligently working, planning the fall. So I would like to shift a little bit to gears here, and let's think about what's coming, what's the fall semester and the new academic year actually look like. And maybe we can have that discussion in terms of what are the first year students joining the institutions, what they should expect. So maybe Dr. Gouveia, maybe I can turn back to you and you can start us off saying, how are you preparing for the fall? How this first year students should be preparing for the new semester, the new academic year?
Okay, thank you. It's a great question. I mean, one of the things that I want to reference is that on June 11th, Minister Romano, who's the Minister of Colleges and Universities in the province, he actually enabled the colleges and universities to welcome back students through pilots this summer to allow us to test our waters, to look at all of the measures that we've put in place around the health and safety of our students, our faculty, and our staff. And so as of July 2nd, we've been able to welcome back students who are eligible to graduate, but are missing hands-on components of their learning in order to do so. And so all of these pilots are happening, which is phenomenal because it is allowing us to put our plans in place and to see where those plans may be falling short and how we have to adjust them and ensure that then the fall can run successfully. That's been all over the news very recently because you will have seen larger colleges in Ontario, in Toronto, starting already this week. So it's some good testing waters for us. So what does the fall look like? You've heard Sarah use the word hybrid or blended model of delivery, and I think that's the best way to describe it. We're all being encouraged to help stop the spread, to all be very aware of a possible second wave and our role in a shared model of accountability and helping to prevent that to the best of our ability. And so that means decreasing density wherever you can and keeping people safe. So for post-secondary education, it means if you have the ability to deliver that education using technology, then leverage that technology because the health and safety of students, faculty, and staff is the number one priority that we all have. So for theory-based courses, if you can, and as Sarah has said, she's working diligently with faculty at UBC Okanagan to do this work, if you can deliver remotely and leverage then web conferencing to create that opportunity for students to connect with their faculty in real time to participate in activities and interactive activities, to be in Zoom meeting groups and work on projects together, then do it, because it will help people to be safe and still have meaning in terms of their education. But that's not just what education is all about. There are also very significant hands-on components, and at least the college system in Ontario has always prided itself on having that balance of theory and practical. As Ashley has mentioned, being back out in the hospital, practicing what she has been studying, what's been her dream. So those practical hands-on components, you can't forego those. Nobody would want to get into a plane with a pilot who had only ever read about being a pilot. They would have wanted that individual to be in a simulator and actually been in a cockpit. So we need to have practical hands-on learning still happen. And so things are being put in place to ensure that where we can have social distancing in those practical hands-on components, we have it. Where it's not possible, what's the appropriate PPE? And we've seen across the province a flurry of changes happening, most recently in Toronto this morning, where you have to have masks in commercial settings. So non-medical masks, but face coverings. That's happening significantly across the province. So what are the PPE requirements? How do you ensure that you have the appropriate sanitization and disinfecting protocols, check-in protocols, training around COVID-19, so people are more aware? All of that is happening right now, so that we can then have students return to campus, for those who are returning, and join us for the first time. So what should a student expect? Well, Frosh Week is not going to look the same. So that's not going to be the experience that people have come to expect or anticipate if they went away to college or university. That's going to look differently. Are there going to be big homecoming events? Not necessarily. Is there going to be an orientation? Well, absolutely. And are there going to be other activities that you can participate? Absolutely. And are you going to have an opportunity to make friends and make connections? Absolutely. Because all the work is happening now to make sure that can happen. We can't make people find friends. What we can do is create opportunities and leverage tools to enable us to do that. So we've had the luxury, we have over 1,500 students at the college this summer, and they've all participated in online orientations. They've all been part of a variety of different activities, you know, goose chase around a virtual campus, peer mentoring. I've mentioned yoga already once, I'm drawing a bit of a blank. There's so many things that someone can sign up for that allows them to connect with people and find a way to make friends. They're not necessarily going to be sitting next to them in a large lecture theater because, again, if it doesn't have to be on campus, why would we bring you on campus? But what we will do is ensure that if you are coming on campus for things that must take place in that environment, that you do so safely. Nobody is going to sacrifice the safety of Ontario students for the sake of just opening up. We're going to do this in a measured and a considered way, and we're going to do it right. And I think that's a really important thing. And this is probably the best time ever to say yes to going to college or university because of the supports that are in place financially, as well as the opportunities in programs where not everybody would have been able to have that chance if they didn't say yes this year. So I think people need to think long and hard. If you were only going to do it to go to Frosh Week, maybe that wasn't the best reason. If you're going to do it to change lives, if you're going to do it to change your own life, if you're going to do it to add meaning and value, none of that has changed. The way you'll do it is potentially a wee bit different. But come along on this journey. The stories you're going to be able to tell as a result will never be parallel. Sorry, really long answers there, but I still...
No.
It's going to be brilliant.
I love that. I mean, those are wise words, and I love that. I mean, if you're coming to school for the wrong reasons, don't. And as I've been telling my students, there will be a time that this is going to be over. We're going to be back on campus. And yes, you can do the scavenger hunter. You can do whatever activities you used to do. Convocation, cross the stage, it will be there. So just hang in there. It's going to be virtual for now, but there will be a time that we'll be together. So I'm confident of that. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. So maybe, Ashley, you can chime in a little bit. Dr. Gouveia mentioned you're coming back. So how are you looking to the fall? Like or what's your expectation?
Right. So my school year kind of continues into the fall. So like I've said, just a lot more telephone, a lot more telemedicine. It takes that much extra time to put on all the proper PPE and take it off properly, but all of those expectations the faculty and all the students are aware of, and we're all doing that safely. What I'd like to share in my short month of virtual classes is some kind of tangible tips that I would like to just get across for students who are going to jump into virtual classes in the fall. And that is, it is very, very easy to tune out, shut off your camera, and mute yourself and have Facebook running in the back. Trust me, I've been there. It's too easy, but you get such a better experience. You become an active learner. You do a service to yourself and to your classmates when you are very engaged. And part of that is having your camera on. So I would challenge you when you start, if students, I mean, technology limiting, I understand that from that perspective, students may not be able to turn on their camera, but if you are able and you want to make that leap to be the first one to turn on your camera, I encourage you to do that. It's a really valuable experience. And that's what I'd like to share. I mean, I echo what Dr. Gouveia is saying, that this is one of the best times to enter a new program. The passion is still there, and you can still very much make friends. I can speak to my Frosh experience in undergrad and medical school, and those are not the lifelong friends that I've made. They're actually the friends I've met in classes. I know everybody is different, but there's still so much opportunity. Sign up for virtual yoga; it's great, and you'll make the best of this experience, and it'll be worthwhile.
Thank you. That's great. Maybe Sarah, can we turn to you? And I know we've heard from you that you're going to have your jobs at UBC. So just a little bit to how the fall is looking like for you.
Yeah, sorry, just very quickly, um, just to reiterate, even in a traditional classroom setting where, it's a first year class and there's 200 or 300 students in the class, the majority of work that the students have to do is at home anyway. So you have to take home what the lecturer was teaching you, and apply that, or read the readings, or study, write notes, and all that fun stuff. That actually happens at home. So like anything in life, this will require motivation and time and energy. You already have that, because these attributes of being motivated and being passionate about learning, if you're going to post-secondary education, you already have that. And so it's absolutely attainable, and it's not that different. In some cases, I know in other cases it will be quite different, but in some cases, it's not that different, especially for first and second year students, where 3 hour lecture a week, but 6 to 9 hours is expected of you out of classroom time. And just to echo, I think Dr. Govia mentioned that, this provides a flexibility whereby a lot of professors will be putting up lectures maybe a week or two in advance. And so if you're like a go-getter, or you're, quick learner, you can actually get ahead and schedule that if you have a busy couple of weeks coming up in the future. So I think that's actually a really good positive and a benefit. I know some professors won't, and this is again subjective to what professors decide to do in terms of their course structure. But I mean, it's totally attainable for first and second, and even in grad school, to do this, to be in this process. And like we mentioned before, you're not alone. There are so many supportive boot camps and workshops and learning centers, teaching and learning centers, that are encouraging both faculty and students and support staff to engage students and help students get the best out of these years. And so, I mean, I would never discourage anyone to not go to school, but in this case, I would still not discourage them to go to school. I feel like if you have that passion and drive, go, and it's going to be amazing. And like Dr. Govea said, you're going to have a story. So
Absolutely. A story to tell for many, many years. Thanks for that, Sarah. One of the things that I'm thinking, like sometimes we see large class sizes, and even if your institution is not offering ways for you to connect, yeah, maybe there's a dashboard or something that you can share information or post a question, but take the initiative, create something with your classmates, get to know them, and maybe smaller cohorts, and you can just start developing that friendship, which, as Ashley alluded to, maybe the first week, they're not going to be your friends for life, but maybe later on in other classes, you will make friends. And those friends, guess what? They will be in the field along with you at the same time. They're going to be graduating sometimes like along with you. So they will be your peer supports when you become a professional as well after your education. So start building those relationships right at the beginning, right?
Even
Thanks for
with
that, Sarah.
yeah, even with like participation, for example, where before in third and fourth year courses you have a seminar or a tutorial and you're expected to speak, in these online blended learning platforms, for students who might be more shy or they have a harder time speaking in person, it's a great opportunity because you'll be able to do this via chat or via discussion group or via Blackboard or Canvas or whatever shareable um, utility your school's using. But for those shy students, this actually might be really great because they can still get those participation grades without having to, speak in person and all that stuff.
Matthew, do you have any thoughts on the fall semester? How it's looking like, or
So because I'm at work, I've got a completely different side of things. Thankfully, we're transitioning back into the office, but the workplaces are also taking a good approach to getting back. I work in a small office, about 20 people, but some approaches we've been taking to make things safe for everybody in the office is to have half the staff in on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the other half on Tuesday, Thursday, and then just alternate that when we have meetings, because meetings are a big part of my company and like getting together and going over things. Just keep your distance, wear a mask, and just stay safe. A little bit different from the educational side of things, but it's good to see that workplaces are also going in a good direction.
yeah, thanks for that. Actually, if the students are thinking about co-op programs, I mean, if they're going to their internships or co-op, there is a way to do co-op. So
Yeah.
maybe it starts remotely, but yeah, absolutely, it's a way that people will continue to work, right? I haven't stopped actually working since March, so there hasn't been a downtime since then. So we have been working, and I'm
Good.
blessed to say that we kept our jobs. But I mean, I relate to folks who lost their jobs throughout the process. But yes, there are jobs out there, especially for folks coming out of school. A lot of students were concerned about that. I would say if you work with your career center, if you get help, if you network, if you reach out to those who can potentially help you, that's all you need to do, right? So the jobs are there and there will be jobs moving forward. So, all right. So we're coming to the last minutes here. I want to pose my last question to you. And just like along with the whole thing that we had looking towards the fall, what sort of advice would you have for those, not just those coming to school for the first time, joining the program for the first time, but those who are hesitant to return because they think, oh, it's going to be online, it's all asynchronous, it's self-paced, so I don't have to really attend class. What advice would you have to for those folks? Maybe Ashley, can we start with you?
Sure. So I'll just kind of echo the last piece of advice that I gave, which was do your best to be an active learner, whether for you that means being present in class, turning on your camera, and being unmuted. For me, that was really helpful to keep me the most engaged. And, see it as a time of opportunity. Um, what education does for you is also teaches you how to be a lifelong learner, how to be resourceful, and how to support what you're learning in class already. So, I mean, if you're still early on in your education, why not start now? Start developing those skills early on. They're going to carry you till the rest of your education and into your career. And it's just a time of opportunity. And recall that it's still a time to be social and keep in touch with your friends, whether it's the friends you meet in class or the friends that you've previously made. And yeah.
Thanks for that. And from what I heard before from you, is that you're going to be able to finish your residency, and you're going to be, of course, you're going to have to look at the safety and the PPE and all that, but there is a way to do it, right? So you're confident that you're going to finish your degree next year, right? And look
Right.
forward to see you crossing the stage.
Right. And yeah, from a medical perspective, and I know that this is across all institutions, there are safety measures in place to make sure that your goals are being achieved in a timely manner and you're still getting the same experience. So that's kind of a universal that I've found in speaking to my friends in other disciplines as well. So, yes, very much looking to graduating on time next year.
Cool. We look forward to that. Sarah, how about you? Do you have any advice for those, not just for those who are starting, like I said before, but those who are returning or hesitant to return? You mentioned like it's a good time to go to school. So, any specific advice you have for those students?
Just I echo what Ashley says. I don't really have much to add. Just understand that everyone's coming from a place that wants to help. There will be help, financial help, as was mentioned before, which is very, very helpful. So lots of opportunity for employment or workshops or TA shifts. And like Ashley said, like find your way to be an active learner, whatever way that works for you. If that's putting yourself in your office or being online, love that idea. I'm going to implement that myself. Ashley, just keeping the record on and the video on, just hold yourself accountable. I love that, and that's a great way to just encourage students to just do it. It's going to be awesome, and professors are working really hard to really make it engaging and interesting. And there will be opportunities either through breakout groups or other mediums to connect with large classrooms into smaller classrooms where that might not have been the case in a traditional classroom. With 500 students or 150 students, getting them into smaller groups through Zoom to connect and talk like we're doing here. And so there will be opportunity, tons of opportunity to network and collaborate.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Dr. Gouveia, maybe you have some, you have shared some amazing words already, like wise words. So I wonder if you have some advice. You mentioned the frosh and students who are coming to school, but how about those who are returning and thinking about finishing, whether they're going to be able to complete their studies or not? What advice would you have for those students?
One of the things I've been saying a lot recently as I've been emailing students around returning is I'm thanking them very much for their patience and understanding, because every day is a day of discovery. Things are shifting consistently. And we recognize and we understand that this isn't necessarily what they had imagined for themselves. But if they are willing to work with us and to be patient as well, as we all navigate through these uncharted waters, we're going to come out on the other side and we're going to get people across the stage, and we're going to be working in a way that helps to preserve their health and safety. So thanking people for their patience is really important, and hopefully people digging deep for that patience. I love the fact that Ashley and Sarah have really mentioned about being present in your studies. You have to come to the table. When you sign up for something, you get access to it, but that doesn't mean that you pass. It doesn't mean that things are going to be given to you. You have to be present in your own life. You have to be present in your own education. You have to be present in your own courses and classes and make of it what you will. So there's lots of conversation in the environment, in the ethos around whether or not potentially younger students should think about doing a victory lap, staying in high school for one more year, upgrading some marks. One of the things that I would encourage everyone is go online to the institution that you are thinking about joining if you haven't made that decision, and take a look at how many free resources you can tap into right now to give you a sample for what it is that they want you to understand about them. Whether it's short 6-hour snippet of a course that just looks at something like positive psychology, whether it's free tutoring in math, science, and language, whether it's a course on how to be a positive and not professional, but rather have meaning in online learning. How do I actually do that? Well, almost every institution has free resources to help you to understand how to navigate these things, because the same way we all had to pivot to Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Google Meets, so did students. And it wasn't something that they necessarily were as familiar with. And so we have to learn to do these things. We learn to do them together. And so I would encourage anyone who is either returning or who is thinking and still hasn't made that decision, check out what your institution already has available for you to try them on for size, because you may just be really surprised by what it is that they have already put in place for you. I know a lot of students who have just exited high school, they may not have connected as much as they wanted to through the online delivery of the last few months of their high school. We have colleagues in the secondary system that were working so hard and so diligently to make that a worthwhile endeavor, but they didn't get prom, they didn't get their commencement, they didn't get those. Don't let that be the only thing that you remember. Rather, think of that as some training that you had to make things better for yourself and to be able to move forward. So the same way our returning students had a sample of a few weeks over the month of April, as their semester was ending this past winter, we've only gotten better at this. We haven't gotten worse. We've had the luxury of time, we've had the luxury of planning, we've had the luxury of professional development, and we've had the luxury of really, really thinking about this in a diligent way to make it better.
Yep.
Faith.
And I hate to stop you and interrupt.
Oh.
I mean, those have been amazing. I want to thank you all. It's been an amazing conversation. And I'd like to turn things back to Matthew. Matthew, take it away.
Thank you so much, Suzette. Thank you so much, Matthew, Ashley, Sarah, and Dr. Gouveia for weighing in on today's webinar and sharing your personal insight and advice with us all. It was really great. And thank you to all of our audience for watching. On behalf of the Federation, here I am behind the scenes, controlling the scenes here with Paul Rocha of Easio Networks. And it's been wonderful to present the FPCBP Speaker Series webinar. Great big shout out to our co-curators of the series who initiated the speaker series, Angie Camara, Mario Rosado, and Ulysses Pratas. We are going to continue with the speaker series throughout the summer, just not right now in July, but hopefully in August we'll be back with some more topics for you all. And also like to thank MDC Media Group, who have been fantastic in broadcasting the webinar series for us and all their support with Milenio Newspaper and Camões TV. And thank you to the wonderful staff. On behalf of the Federation of Portuguese Canadian Business and Professionals, we wish you all a happy summer and please stay safe. Thanks for watching, everybody.